Welcome back to QNN Sports. My name is Sergio de la Espriella. Joining me now is Ryan Urquhart from the Gator Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. Ryan, nice to see you again. How you doing?
Yeah, good to see you, man. I'm doing good. Just fresh off of a sweep against Mississippi State, so in a pretty good mood today.
Yeah, well, Ryan covers Gator softball for, again, Learfield IMG College. And I wanted to bring you on and ask you a few questions about the Gator softball team. And currently they're sitting at 21-2, as you said, coming off a sweep of Mississippi State. Their season was canceled early last year, as everyone else's did with the COVID-19 pandemic. What have you seen returning wise from that? I think it was 11-2 start to the year last year, going into this 21-2 season that they've kicked off here in 2021.
Well, I think what we've seen return from this team, the obvious headliners are Charlotte Eccles and Kendall Lindemann, who were kind of the big boppers from last season. Hannah Adams has been a very steady presence in that leadoff spot for Florida. Then on the flip side, the pitching has really been, not only has been a returning factor, but has elevated in 2021 with the emergence of Katie Chronister. Natalie Lugo's been solid. Hightower's emerged as the ace on this staff. So there's been a lot of fresh faces that have come back from that 2020 team, use their extra year of eligibility. You think of the Kendall Lindemans or the Chronisters, who went ahead and took that spare year, and they're really making the most of it so far.
And do you think that compared to other teams in the SEC or nationally, that's an advantage for the Gators, or do you see more returning production in the teams that the Gators have played throughout the season?
You know, it really does vary by team. It's very hard to stack Florida up against every team in that regard because everybody's different. You know, we've seen teams where only one player came back because everybody else already had jobs or school lined up in other places, or maybe some schools brought everybody back. You know, it just varies so much program to program as to who has what and how many spots were available and what teams look like and how veteran they are. So the landscape in terms of roster management is dramatically different this year in what teams look like and how veteran they may be or may not be this season. So it's hard to say where Florida falls in that regard, but I would definitely say that they're probably on the upper end, just considering how talented they were already to have that spare year out of some players like Kendall Lindemann, who is set for her final season of eligibility. To get a spare year out of her has been really valuable.
So the Gators are sitting at 21-2 right now. They started this season, I believe, 14-0. Their first loss wasn't until March 6th against Florida State on the road. The only other team they've lost to is a top 10 ranked Kentucky team. Where do you see the Gators going forward, both in the conference and maybe on the national level for the second half of this season?
Well, I think Florida is definitely a team that is no doubt a competitor for the SEC regular season title, will be a factor in the SEC tournament and in the NCAA tournament. I don't think you'll find many people who are going to question the Gators as someone who's a competitor in terms of the postseason picture. They've been a staple of that tournament pretty much for over the last decade. If you're managing expectations for this season, I think it's more than reasonable for the Gators to be in the hunt for an SEC title this year. 3 series popped out to me at the start of this conference schedule for Florida. That Kentucky series, the LSU series, and the Alabama series. And that's not to discredit any of other Florida's SEC opponents. I mean, this is one of the deepest conferences in the sport. But those series were going to be pivotal because Kentucky was going to be a measuring stick for, all right, well, where is this team? Well, they're one fly ball short of a sweep against the top 10 team. All right, well, that's where they are. We're going to find out more about Florida this week against LSU. All right, here's the team that was picked second in the SEC in the preseason. How do the Gators do with them at home? And then the toughest test is going to be on the road at Alabama, the preseason favorite to win the conference. So it kind of ramps up in an interesting way where we really get to get a good measure for where Florida is as the season progresses. As far as the rest of the top 10, the only out-of-conference opponent that really sticks out to this point as a Women's College World Series team is Florida State. And I think that was a good demonstration of what works for Florida when they're successful versus, what maybe was a problem for them at that point in the season when things weren't, right? Is when they're pitching well, when Hightower's got her best stuff, Florida's very hard to score runs on. And they've got the hitters to be able to have those explosive moments to get victories. However, if you're able to get something going against Florida and you're able to break through that pitching staff, the Gators haven't really shown the ability yet to win in that kind of shootout fashion. They've had games where they've had explosive shutouts of 8-0, 11-0, but we haven't seen them win a game something like 11-9. And that's not a knock against the team. That's just the style. That's sort of the approach that this edition of Florida has this year. So I think they're a firm competitor for the NCAA tournament. I think they're certainly in the mix for the SEC title again this year. It's just going to come down to, how do those series play out and how does Florida rise to the challenge?
Ryan Urquhart, play-by-play voice for the Florida Gators softball team on the Learfield IMG Radio Network. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Have a great day, man.
Of course. Much appreciated, man.